All right.
That worked. I like that.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. And Jan, did you get both pieces? Can you give Jan one? First, we have two congratulations. Jamie has just been reelected. And Peter has been elected. Yeah, we are delighted to have both of you with us. And Michaela, are you up there?
No,
I know Bruce.
that's Patty Kaya.
Yeah, that's Patty. And isn't that Bruce? Bruce, can you hear me? He's waving. Looks good.
I can hear you and I can see you when I take my eyes off the road long enough to look at the room.
Please don't take your eyes off the road, Patrick. Liz,
Yeah. Yep.
your turn.
That's funny.
What do you want me to do?
You are asking for the
Oh,
approval.
will you approve my minutes, please?
Someone like to make that motion?
I move to approve.
Thank you. All those in favor, any discussion? First of all, any comments on your impeccable minutes?
Nothing to say.
Okay.
Bruce, I.
Patrick,
Hi. Mark, aye.
Rennie, aye.
Goes without saying, aye. Jan, aye.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move pretty briskly through the first part of this stuff. Patrick, you're on for the next two items.
Okay, I am just looking for the actual text because you asked me to read it. Give me 1 second. I hope we're not paying these lawyers per word. All right, number 18 of the conditions in the 3537 special permit application, and I quote, "If it receives all permits required for construction of the project, as shown on the approved plans, the applicant shall make a donation to the town's affordable housing trust in the amount of $25,000 for each of the 23 single-family residences to be constructed on the property. The applicant shall make such payment prior to application for and issuance of a certificate of occupancy." That's my understanding from the meetings that the applicant intends to build those on spec, not on spec, on demand. So Liz, what's the term for that? They get an order and they build it. Real estate.
I wasn't even listening. I was.
Okay. All right.
I'm recording.
Basically, as they sell the home, they build it for the person who buys it. So it gets kind of
Oh, on spec.
on spec.
No, it's not on spec. They're gonna build it.
Made to order.
Oh, made to order?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're gonna sell them over time is my point.
Okay.
So over up to 23, it might be 5, might be 10, might be 23, who knows? It's gonna be based on market demand.
And so the checks would come as they're sold.
I asked them to pay us in Bitcoin.
Well, today that would have been good to have.
Or was it? Why did
It's at a record today.
Okay, so there's that. And then the at town meeting, $100,000 was appropriated to the Affordable Housing Trust from the CPC.
So the 25 times 23 is 575. Is that
It is, yeah.
Okay.
So
Patrick,
Yes,
does that money go to the town or the trust?
the trust.
it goes directly into our bank account.
Okay, thank you.
But it's over a fairly extended period of time.
It's gonna be years till we see anything.
Mhm.
Because they won't even, is there any estimated start of construction?
No.
No, they have to go to Concom, right?
They have to get all their permits, which is a year at least. Okay, well, in our dreams, we'll look forward to that money.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure, as long as it doesn't take up very long to answer it.
Was the, I think it's 3537 project, were they encouraged to pursue affordable housing, or did they make the decision without having any pressure to decide to donate the money instead of pursuing buildings on their property?
I don't think anybody pressured them.
I
did point out-
remember-
No, I did point out though, that, my concern was the original proposal had the 4 workforce units. There were 2 duplexes. One was kind of behind the, entertainment barn, and another one was sort of on the edge of the 23 single-family homes, nothing like the rest of the homes. Usually when you require an applicant to build, to make a mixed use like that, at least the exterior of the homes are gonna all look the same. And these are rather segregated and different. And I just felt like if you're gonna have 133 hotel residences plus 23 single-family homes that are all like, in all likelihood, super high-end, that sort of 4 families stuck on the edge of the property might kind of feel like, frankly, not really fitting in terms of how they felt. So I brought it up and they offered this payment. I'm not sure this payment is as good as 4 single-family homes, but kind of on balance, I felt like I didn't want people to feel out of place. So.
And they were not obligated because they filed prior to the vote with the select
The
board.
subdivision plan they filed, not just
Right.
permit, but yeah.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. Is that all we asked for you? I think. The CDBG grant is progressing. They have allocated all of the money. And at the moment, I think they have from Stockbridge, approximately 4 to 5 houses will be improved with that money.
Also, there's a different opportunity right now for folks, which is also income qualified, which is an age-in-place grant. BRPC has 20 age-in-place grants this year. And I believe that the applications have been running low. And I think it's up to $50,000 if you want to, like, for example, take your bedrooms on the second floor, you want to renovate your first floor, you want to add a shower to a bathroom that's only a toilet or something in the bathroom on the first floor. It's up to $50,000 per grant. Their goal is to do 5 more in the 3rd and 4th quarter of the calendar year. So if anybody is looking for kind of, it's a 0 interest loan that pays back when the deed transfers. So either you sell it or, something else happens. And so it's a really good deal. And I think that just, it's just something that people should be aware of.
And it's, I have looked into it. It's a fairly easy application.
Yeah.
But it is, the big requirement is that whatever improvement you make is related to whatever disability.
Age in place. It's not so much disability. It's about kind of having people be able to stay in their homes.
Right. But it needs to be something that improves the quality of your life living in your home. So, okay. Mark.
All right, as discussed in past meetings, I've been looking into the one-stop shopping option that the state offers with its many different programs for funding economic development. They have a one-stop system where you can enter through one point and get put in the appropriate place to make your application. And one area that could be of very interest to us is the Mass Works Infrastructure Program. And this is for pre-development and implementation grants for projects that improve infrastructure, such as roadways, streets, bridges, culverts, water, sewer, and other utilities. The program in Great Barrington by their Housing Trust and Habitat for Humanity got a $3.2 million grant from Mass Works Infrastructure for their North Plain Road project, which is underway, putting 20 homes over on North Plain Road with Habitat for Humanity handling that. The land was acquired by the town of Great Barrington through its Affordable Housing Trust. And so that's an example of how that funding can be used. And if we were to proceed on Glendale Middle Road, that would be a place to look for some support on water, sewer, and other infrastructure.
I have a question. So for that award that was given in Great Barrington, was that to the town or to the trust?
I do not know from the articles I've read. It went to the project. Now, who cashed the check, I'm not sure. For the current year, the deadline for applying is June 4th. Otherwise, the merry-go-round goes around next year.
And how I know you've looked into, is it complicated? Do we have to hire someone to?
Well, Michael Canales has done some grant applications and received some. And he would know better than I about how complicated it is
I
to make
think
the
you are,
application.
Michael, if we could call on you.
Yeah, it depends on what grant you're applying for, what level of work. We've got a $1 million grant for the Tuckerman Bridge last year for the bridge replacement through the Mass Works infrastructure portion. So the town has applied for those. In that case, we had design drawings and other stuff. We had gone through enough planning. So what you have to look at is whether or not you first need a planning grant. That would then get you to the point where you can go after the Mass Works grant, because you have to have enough detail to show them that this is a project that's been developed far enough along to go for. I would assume the bigger money is the construction grant, and the initial grants can be planning grants.
Yeah. So we're not that far along to be able to say, put in an application by June 4th for these, because it does require, they don't give out this money easily, and you really have to have your ducks in a row. And, at that point, you would probably want ownership of the land, have a architect's plans, we're gathering the water and sewer studies, which would be very, very useful. But we would need to be further along. Now, if there's some planning grants that help us get to that stage, that might be something to
That's
look
what I was going to
into.
ask.
Yeah.
Because, we're considering today the planning for the water and very conceptual planning for the architecture and site plan.
Yeah.
Could we apply?
I will look further into what's available in the real early stages. Their website makes it appear that they will assist in some of the pre-planning. I'm just going to show this to Randy and I'll discuss it, but they have a whole section on preparing for growth and then what they call catalyzing specific projects, which is building and infrastructure. So there is something here for planning and zoning, site preparation. So we'd have to look at these more carefully to see whether we're at a stage where we could even get something like that. And if we can, June 4th is right around the corner. So
Yeah.
I'll look further into that.
Do you know what the turnaround time is on when?
They look at the proposals over the summer, and according to their schedule, they start awarding them in the fall.
So if we approve these things today, if we approve them today, can we start on it and get reimbursed?
Good question. I will try to find that out. I need to really get a hold of somebody who can give us a direct answer who's involved with it. Just try and piece my way through the website and figure this out. You really need some expertise to weigh in, and I will do that.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mark, for continuing to.
I just got a quick, I forget because we haven't had meetings in some time now. Is that federal grants or is it state grants?
This is for state. And it's supposedly reflects the fact that the state has passed that big housing bill and is trying to encourage more housing. So I'm hoping that the coffers are a little fuller than they used to be in these categories. One issue, I think, for us, for any project we undertake, but we're looking at Glendale Middle, is how many units of housing are you going to create?
Yeah.
And we haven't had much of a discussion about that as a group. We may all have different ideas about how many units of housing could conceivably go back there. But if it's too few, it may not be of interest to the state. They want to get some bang for their buck. If it's too big, it may be out of scale with what the town wants. So we would have to try to find a sweet spot that seems reasonable to the town and also reasonable to the state.
Okay.
Is it premature to apply for this? I'm sorry. Could I ask a question? Is it premature to apply for this until we actually see definite?
Yeah, it would be, although they do have these preparing for growth grants, which could be for planning and site preparation. And it could be, for example, one of the things we'll be talking about on the agenda is a application to do a water study. Now, we might be able to get funding for something like that and not have to pay for it with the resources that we have in our account now. So they do have a certain amount of money and programs involved to helping you get to the stage where you're ready to hit the ground, and we might get in there somewhere. But I think even for those, you have to have a certain amount of having your act together to make that application. So it seems to them that it's not a pie in the sky proposal, that it's something that has a reasonable likelihood of succeeding.
The only thing we have right now is the land on Glendale Meadow Road that we own. So we definitely have a project that we're investigating right now. So we do have something that we could ask for money for under the planning, but we need to move on to that. And first, Jan, would you give us an update?
On the 14 Pine Street.
Right.
So we met with Eileen Peltier and Matt a couple of months ago for them to walk through the property owner and looked at it, and then they gave us their brief assessment of how many units they thought could be put into the building. And what some of the requirements would be for it to be affordable housing, i.e. for state funding. And that would be to require that they all be wheelchair accessible. That would probably not apply to the 3 apartments up on the top 2 floors that are already existing, but it would apply to any of them on the first floor and certainly in the basement area.
I just want to repeat where this is so people, it's on Pine Street. It's near the senior housing, but on the opposite side of the street. It's where the Waldorf School is now, at the corner of Shamrock and Pine. And school is moving obviously to the old town hall. And there are some existing market rate apartments on the top of that building. And in this middle floor is what we were considering as possibly being available. The owner wants to sell the property. But again, it's got a pretty good price tag.
It's over 2 mil.
Yeah.
It's $1,950,000.
And some of it is, as I say, occupied. Some of it down in the basement has no wheelchair access and might not be suitable for affordable housing. So this gets into this question, I think, of, if we can squeeze 2 or 3 units in there, that might not be enough to get the interest of the state grants. It's just such a small project.
I think that's some of the feedback we got from Eileen, that many units would not be of great interest to the state to be funding a lot of money for that. So she didn't rule it out, but it's an uphill battle on that one. We asked if they would help us put together a rough kind of picture of what renovation costs might look like before going and spending money on a formal planning kind of arrangement. So, and Matt was helpful in doing some of that. I've put together a kind of very rough idea of what the renovation costs might be, given what Matt sent us, along with, what sale price, how much we would have to take out as a mortgage, what the monthly rate would be, what you could rent the apartments for, to look at what the economics might look like. And it's a difficult picture, not impossible, but difficult. Even assuming some apartments in the basement, which would not be capital A affordable, but might be workforce housing or, studios or whatever. So where we are right now is I've sent that to Mark and Andrea at Stockbridge Housing. And also back to Matt, and we're trying to schedule a time to go over that so that Matt can give us feedback about, what I've left out or, what's off the mark here or there. And then I think we could have a conversation with Hal, the owner, about the economics of all of that and see if there's some variation we could put together that would be economically feasible to move forward. So that's where we are at this moment.
The preliminary numbers, I think, would be fair to say, it's tight and skinny, but not, we shouldn't rule it out at this
Right.
time. And
I think that's right.
collecting some more, we're in the position of all our projects of collecting additional information so that we can make an informed decision.
Right.
And we do have expressed interest, as I understand it, from Andrea and Heaton Court.
Yes.
And in addition to the idea of individual apartments being installed, we also might consider doing the 24-hour sections. They have, I think, 4 of those kinds of units within Heaton Court. And the demand for that, it's basically Alzheimer mental care, where someone lives with a group of people who live in a common apartment for 24/7 help. And that particular need is dramatic right now. So that might be a different kind of use that could be considered.
I have a question. It's actively on the market.
I know.
So do we have right of first refusal?
We do not have.
Can
that
we,
right now.
I mean, if we're going to put this time into this and it could just go, somebody could sign
That's true.
a thing, maybe we should see if he would at least give us that kind of
On a paper.
ability.
And
Yeah.
in exchange for what?
Just, he knows we're putting all this time in, and if we're going to do that and we might spend a little money, I'd like to know that he's going to hold it for us and rather than go
Or give
after
us a
this.
chance. I mean,
Right.
first refusal is really not, well, it does impact, I think you can probably speak to that best, but it does impact your saleability once people know that someone else has a right of first refusal to match any offer. But I agree with you. I think that if we're gonna continue to consider this,
Yeah, because we don't,
Well, we
we have no skin in this at all. So.
Yeah. Well, I think we can definitely talk with them about that. They will do that.
Patrick, did you have something?
Can I ask a quick question on that? Real quick.
Sure.
Not sure who to direct the question to. We've been hearing for a while, if it's feasible, has anybody put some trending projections of what the Affordable Housing Trust can afford to, if you're above that barrier, then to Liz's point, you kind of don't put the resources into it and you walk away from it
You're asking
financially?
what comes first, the chicken or the egg?
No, I think you can do some projections and have,
Well, I
some
think,
type of an idea.
I think that's what I tried to do. I put together some financials.
Yes.
Okay, so.
And that's what we want to go over with
Okay.
Matt. And also how. And just see, in advance of spending money to do planning, but just get an idea of.
Yep.
Are we in the right ballpark?
Good.
Are we in the game here?
But the answer to your question is yes. Jen's put some considerable amount of time
Sounds good.
into both touring and doing some financial projections. And we've also, you have also talked to Penrose.
Yes.
So we do have input from them. Do you want
Jackie?
Jackie?
Oh,
Yeah, not someone behind you, dear.
yeah.
Who else is behind?
Just a quick question. It appears that you're working with the housing authority.
Well, they've been in this discussion. Yes.
So I don't know if that means a determination has been made on the part of the trust to use it for senior housing or any other type of housing which might address the needs of the community. And I just want to mention something that Manny said earlier about the Glendale Middle Road or maybe say, like, we do have a project, but you don't have a project, you have a site, right? I mean, as far as I understand.
We own 33 acres.
Sites,
Not a
right?
project, though.
Jackie, we have 33 acres of land,
Right,
which if you want to split hairs about words,
right.
it's a project for us. Because it's our job to determine whether that land can be developed, and that's what
We
we're.
have that on the agenda.
Right, but
Can
you
we,
don't have a project per se in
Try
terms
not
of
to.
numbers and that kind of thing. You have a site that.
we have this on the agenda in the next 2 points.
Right, right.
I think the board,
To that.
yeah, no, I get it. For the answer to that, the Housing Authority also manages Section 8s for all South counties, so they are involved in housing other than senior housing.
So you're looking perhaps not just at senior, but
Yeah,
at
yeah.
other.
I mean, it's possible.
As I said, you know, in the basement, it may well be workforce housing, which would not be Stockbridge housing. So it's fluid at the moment. They're involved. I think they have an interest in the property as well. So,
Thank you. Thank you, Jan.
okay.
Moving on. Bruce, where are you?
I'm here, I'm with you.
Okay,
So
Oh, no.
the issue, and fortunately, I am unable to read the details of the outline, but Randy asked me to communicate with Dave Prickett from DPC Engineering to basically get pricing on what they would do to create an analysis analogous to the one that they did for bringing sewage onto the parcel. And he basically said that it would cost approximately this, basically that we should budget, I won't even say approximately, that we should budget the same amount of money that we did for that they charged us for sewage, which is $7,900, and that they would do an analysis, again, analogous to the one they did for sewage, to bring water onto the property, which would include adequate water pressure and volume for firefighting, for not only anything new that we might develop, but for the existing Glendale Middle Road neighbors. And if someone wants to talk about any of the specifics, again, as I'm driving at 70 miles an hour down 87, up 87, I would prefer that someone that's there look at what I sent around to everyone and read off the outline of what would be included in that proposal.
Liz, did we discuss this at the last meeting? I seem to recall we discussed this and we decided,
We voted.
you
against
voted
it.
not to do it. And my first question for you guys is, why is this on the agenda when we voted not to do it at the last meeting?
we did not have a proposal, and at this meeting, we have a definite proposal.
That's not how these boards work, Randy. It is not how these boards work. And a lot of people are here today because, okay, I'd like to make a motion to table this, and if you would give me the courtesy, I would like to explain why. We've spent a year now.
Patrick, certainly, you're making a motion to table this proposal. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Anne, would you like to now?
Spent a year talking about land use decisions in this town. We had the Interlake and Crosswood vote at town meeting. We had DeSisto. We have this. These are three things that obviously a lot of people are interested in talking about. Now, Affordable Housing Trust is subject to state rules in Massachusetts. That includes that we have met our 10% threshold, as Jamie had pointed out in one of our many debates on the subject. He was right. All right. What that means is we're subject to the zoning board of appeals to approve what we want to do. All right. That's one issue to keep in mind. Second thing is that in the paper last week, they talked about how they're going to have draft regulations on the seasonal communities designation in July for comment, and they're trying to get them out by the end of the summer. Now, seasonal communities, one of the important parts of that is that there's a proposal that this board is considering, not this board, that the state board that's figuring out these regulations is considering to raise the maximum amount of money you can make, the median income, area income, whatever it's called, from 80% in a seasonal community to 150%. And Nantucket has proposed they raised to 250%. So that would make kind of housing more available to kind of middle-class folks to again to live here. Now, we haven't decided even to go forward as a town with seasonal communities yet. This board, you got three select board members here. We haven't even decided when we're gonna bring that forward, but I have no idea what our housing strategy should be based on the fact that we have so much uncertainty. So the first thing that's gonna happen, and our board actually debated this and decided that we would wait until the regulations came out, and then we would decide whether to proceed. And that includes a decision whether to do that at a special town meeting, because it takes a town meeting vote, or an annual town meeting, next May. And then from there, you start to think about, okay, what should the strategy here be? Now, I also point out to you that before I spend my position is before we spend another nickel of this money, which is taxpayer money, I would like us to also meet with the ZBA and get their input, because we're going to need a variance on anything we propose. I don't care if it's something at the industrial park or here. Any larger development that we propose is going to require a permit from the ZBA, and they are our special permitting authority. Just like we were for DeSisto, they are for us. And frankly, and maybe this is just me sounding a little worn out, because man, those last two land use decisions were pretty difficult, kind of from sitting in one of our chairs. But man, I don't want any more fights right now. I would like us to reach out to the ZBA and keep an eye on what the state is planning. It's only 3 months away when we're going to have an answer. And rather than we don't even have the authority one-off to unilaterally say, we're going to do this there. The ZBA gets to decide whether it's a good idea or not. And I don't know that they would make that decision in the context of unknowing, not knowing what our other options were. So my suggestion is we just put a cork in it for a little while, and we have a conversation that I believe should start the select board around where we're going as a town. All these debates this year have been around land and people. What do we want to do with our land? And what's the mix of people we want to have living in this town? And I think that's a really good conversation that doesn't have to be full of acrimony for us to have as a complete town. And I would strongly rather have us do that way rather than kind of just keep throwing $5,000 or $10,000 or $15,000 at hypothetical questions when we don't even know if we could get a permit from ZBA to do this. So that's my argument for tabling it.
Thank you. While all your arguments are particularly worthwhile, it should be.
Not necessarily, yes. Some people in the room might disagree.
Well, but we can agree that your comments are worthwhile. In response to that, talking to the zoning board of appeal, which we also have a member, and somebody else, I think, in the audience is a member of the zoning board of appeal.
No, I don't think so.
We don't have any others. All right, but we have Mark.
Well, I can just say that in the 3 or 4 years I've been on the board, we haven't had any question like this put before us. So we handle a lot of things like if somebody's fence is too tall, or if they want to put a shed in the wrong place. And we get into those rules and variances sometimes. And I would say the ZBA has had very little experience in trying to grapple with something like this. I understand that it's a governing authority when it comes to what I understand to be a friendly 40B, where a ZBA or the town works with a developer to put in a project that's not in accordance with the zoning rules, but that the town agrees can be done anyway, if I have that correct. And so the ZBA would have to, yes.
Don't you still have to prove a hardship?
I don't know. I mean, for,
I don't think any of us are lawyers, and I would,
No.
personally, I would rather keep the conversation at the board, if you don't mind, until you open it up for public input.
Sure.
I just said the ZBA would have a lot of work to do to catch up with the kinds of questions.
Of course, we just went through it. I know exactly where you'll need to go through.
That you're dealing with. We have not been doing that in recent years.
You know, but I can't imagine that we could even think about a conversation with the ZBA until we had some formed idea about what we'd like to do on the land.
We don't have any idea.
That's
I don't
right.
have any idea because I think that the strategy as a town, if we can go up to 250%, you know, someone could be making 150 grand a year, which is well beyond what I make, and still not be able to afford a house in this town. If the seasonal communities allows that, and this town decides they want to be a seasonal community, which they haven't done yet, then I think our strategy might be very different than if we want to build, you know, it's called the missing middle for a reason. There's nothing for those people. A lot of people in Berkshire County are building housing for the 30 to 50% AMI, which would be your typical low-income rental housing project that we would be able to do on this parcel. And I am not at all convinced that that's right for Stockbridge in the context of what our other options may be just 90 days from now. I'm not saying those are better options or this is a better option. I don't know, because I don't know what our options are.
Whether, what decision, it doesn't depend. What decision we make ultimately about this land does not have any bearing on your concerns about whether we're a seasonal town or not a seasonal town. We need to know what is possible on this land.
Sure, it depends. Because for example, if we're a seasonal community and we can go up to 150 or to 250% of AMI, we could put a police officer who is making 100 grand, including overtime, into one of 3 or 4 houses that we could build somewhere versus, you know, single family homes versus that's completely unrealistic for rentals because the scale's too small. We could have a different strategy that maybe was revolved around home ownership.
I think
don't really
there's,
know.
well, what we do know is what's appropriate for that land. And multifamily housing is not appropriate for that part of it.
Yeah.
It's basic, you don't have to have an elaborate plan to know that that neighborhood is single family homes. And anything that we do on that land in the future has to be, in my opinion, single family homes to be appropriate to the neighborhood. You don't go into a neighborhood like the Glendale neighborhood and put multifamily homes. So finding out what we can do with single family homes in some sort of form on that land in anticipation of all these options that may or may not be coming our way is an appropriate way. A member of our town gave us a piece of property that he paid $1 million for. And for us as a town, not to show the small amount of respect to try to determine what the confines of development are on that land. And to keep, we've already waited 3 or 4 months. We could have had this information.
We spent, boy, did we spend $7,900 plus the money to Foresight. You know, Penrose, I toured, you know, the old Levan property with Penrose. People were building Brushwoods and Lennox. And what they said was, you can't get to 50, you don't have a deal with this. There's no deal under 50. Now for home ownership, maybe the number's as low as 20, because that's what they're doing, because that's what the Habitat's model is.
Right.
But regardless, we came in with a sewer cost that, Brandon, for 3 sites is what, a couple $1 million. I feel like this.
Patrick, the information on that, I spoke to Dave about that. And what he told me was that he put that number out under the assumption that it was going to be done by the town and that all the costs, the multiple, and Michael can speak to this, if a town does something, you have to use union labor, there's a lot of extra costs. And then he said to me, oh, I should have considered, none of that is going to be done by the town. All of that, all the distribution is going to be done by the private developer. And he said it'll be a fraction of that cost.
The distribution meaning,
Once we enter our land.
I want to have the town to have a conversation around what we want to be when we grow up. And I don't think over 90 days or 120 days to start to figure out and bring our partners in is such an unreasonable thing to ask. And I apologize if that means that you guys have to keep coming for a couple more months when we have a meeting. But I really think this should be a town decision around this stuff. Yes, Michael. Oh, sorry. No. Well, Michael, you should wait for the chair. Michael.
Michael, would you like to speak?
Yeah, so if you're receiving any state or federal funds on this project, all components of this project will be prevailing wage. They'll all be, they could be if there's any federal funds under Roger Bacon or the rest. So unless you're talking about hiring a private developer purely, any assistance you get at state or this whole project's.
It's all going to be, Michael, it's all going to be under a private developer. It'll never, the only thing that would ever happen that would come under the town's jurisdiction is what happens in the public, in the roads. Anything that happens on the property, because we're not entitled or authorized to do development ourselves.
And if you.
We're arguing the details. I tried to make a larger point here, which is, I think that we should bring our boards together. We got Peter from the planning board. We got two select board members here, plus me. We've got a zoning board of appeals. I think we need to have a conversation around the big picture issues, and that should inform, including whether we decide to have a vote mid-year on seasonal communities, what our strategy is. Now, there's progress that we can make in between now and then on opportunities and issues, such as, brainstorming what some of the different solutions could be depending upon which way we go. But I don't think we have enough information right now with so many big giant decisions. Like there's a lot of moving parts here, and I don't think we should. I don't think we're ready to even entertain a one property rental specific solution yet as a town.
Mark,
It's been a long time since I looked at the numbers for the sewer costs. But I remember being here at a meeting some months back where I was thinking, that's a pretty big number. And if you divide that by 10 houses, 20 houses, 30 houses, try and get a sense per unit of what that cost was, that it was very high, and that the cost of that infrastructure might be so great that it sort of offsets the value of having been granted the land for free. And I don't know whether we want to spend money on more checking for more infrastructure when we may have enough information already to say that's too steep a hill to climb. I mean, I don't recall the sewer figures, and I should.
it was 180,000. It was a large number, but I think it is well worthwhile, given what Dave said to me today about that number, that it's not the appropriate number. So.
We need to.
So Mark,
Yeah.
we did have that discussion. We also had the discussion that we estimated, and we didn't have an analysis from Prickett. But we had the discussion that water was probably going to be a multiple of sewer. And that was before we had any additional infrastructure costs of building in roads, driveways, bringing in other utilities that people would need to support those homes. And that was before any developer put the first shovel or backhoe in the ground to actually build the units at what we all know to be higher per square foot construction costs lately than they have ever been. And we actually had that same discussion, Mark, and we said that depending upon the number of units that would need to be put in to make them, to the cost of those units to actually fit in the rubric of affordable housing, probably wouldn't work. It would not foot. So we did have that discussion. And so it's a question of whether to keep pursuing this at this point in time, particularly given some of the unknowns that Patrick has laid out with seasonal communities designation, ADUs, and everything else that's out there on the horizon. It's appropriate comments for you to have made.
So just so I think I heard this correctly, you're saying that David Prickett said that with the cost of water and sewer, it would not be feasible.
No,
I'm asking what he just said.
But
I'd
I
like-
was there too, Liz.
Okay,
And he did not say it wasn't feasible. And he told me today, when I asked that question, that we don't have the right information.
but he said with the cost of water and sewer, that it wouldn't be, that's just what, I mean, I just look at word for word and that's what he said.
Well, I mean, I know that when you are obligated to use union labor, that the cost is certainly higher than using non-union labor. But for his comment of it would be a fraction of the cost, I would really want to know exactly what fraction he means.
Yeah.
Because while
Absolutely.
99.
while union labor is more expensive,
Yeah.
it's not usually double. You may pay a premium for using union labor, 10, 15, 20%, but you're certainly not talking about a small fraction of what you would otherwise pay, having been involved in construction projects where we had some that used union labor and some that did not. And I know the differential, and it's clearly higher, but not double.
We have a hand up here.
Well, we're not having any discussion until
He
we
may know
finish.
because he's part of the union.
I think the question is that since he made that David made that comment, that it would, and people are using that number on this board to form their opinions, that it would be wise to ask him the question again and get a more appropriate answer. Because he also,
Is that how we're getting around a decision of the board that we made the last one? Well, we needed more information to make a good decision. We made this decision. All right. And it's frankly kind of a little weird to have an actual proposal in front. You didn't come back and say, I think we should revisit it based on the fact that we maybe didn't think about these three things. We have actual proposals, that I don't know.
Patrick, that is the professional way to proceed, to try to gather the information so that we can move forward with an intelligent decision. And what you're talking about is we don't have a master plan for this town. And that's the planning board for Peter and Liz.
We've already started.
But to be blunt, what I'm talking about is you didn't have the authority to go out and get this proposal after this board told you that we weren't interested in doing it.
That's right.
All right, I'm sorry. That is what I'm saying is that process matters in this town. And I've been the chair of multiple boards in this town and you didn't have the authority, Randy. And it's just strange. And I know that this is the first board you've been on, so I'm giving you a pass, but that's not how the boards work. We try to do things with consensus. And we had a consensus in the last meeting and I made
But we had consensus under incomplete information.
says who?
It says I. And I have as much opinion as you do. So I am bringing something before the board that I think we should discuss. If you want to vote it down, that's entirely our position. But I believe that in order to make an intelligent decision about our own land, because we're not responsible for planning the town's land development, that goes to the planning board. You have certain responsibilities as a select board. We have responsibilities for our land. And we have not developed, we as this board, with the exclusive ownership of that land, to come to an informed and professional and considered opinion about what the best use of it is. And when you do this kind of project, complicated development project that we're doing in public, and we have a lot of people who live around the project and have opinions, which they're entitled to have, entirely to have. And a lot of issues about not in my backyard are part of all that conversation. And getting the information complete so that we know what could be done on at least part of the proposal that we have for land development is to have someone professional, a professional planner, look at it. We have something from an engineer, which we all believe is excessive. Having the information about what could lay out in an attractive development, because I think Mark very wisely said, when all of these people hear us talk about this, they have no idea what's in our minds because we haven't said.
All right, well, let's talk about the merits of it for a second. If we're going to have this conversation, let's have it. Okay, you say, well, I think that it is.
What do we, the merits of what?
This, all right. You know, it is their backyard, A. You know, you start talking about putting 10 or 20 or 30 units in somebody's backyard. Okay, you want to look at the police logs? It's not that people are better or worse. It's just when you put that concentration of people in a small space, you get a lot more noise, a lot more like things going on that it's just much more disruptive. That what I always supported this property was a handful of middle-class houses that would be targeted at where we really need help, I think. You know, we're about to build a new firehouse and hire 10 paramedics. You know, I started a job a month ago at the Southern Berkshire Ambulance as a CFO. And 25 of the 30 paramedics and EMTs live more than an hour away because nobody can afford to live here. Talk about the things that we need just in terms of the plan and hiring. You know, my first day I was in there and there was I don't want to talk about the specific patient, but there was a debate about whether they should take the one ambulance that had a paramedic and send a patient who needed to get to BMC up there. But then if they had a serious accident in South County, they wouldn't be able to cover it. And so that bellman, the head of the hospital, comes down to the ambulance and they're debating this. And the obvious answer would be just call a paramedic in and pay him time and a half, but they all live an hour away and so nobody can get there. All right, so this question of kind of how we deal with things like the new firehouse and staffing and whether or not like I still believe that on balance, a couple of single family homes that we could target to things like municipal might be really good for the town and not so disruptive to the neighbors. But I'll have to say in their defense, all right, I think that, you know, I mean, you look at some of these families who've been here for 50, 100 years in this room who had a dump. And then the dump was capped because God knows what they put up there that they never told you. And then they got the solar, right? Isn't the kind of the cell tower? I mean, you know, honestly, it's a 50-foot driveway and I don't want to have 30 people, 30 homes living up there. They're going back and forth between that driveway. So you want my opinion, the thing it's always been that we should do a handful of homes, if anything. And I was in the room with Hans when he first proposed this, which is why that deed to us says it could also be used for open space. All right. I was there in 2021 with him when he first discussed giving us the land. And I don't think Hans is going to have any problem one way or the other. Now, some of you aren't going to support my personal position, which is 2 or 3 homes back there. And I get that. But I'm going to try, as we just did with the Sisto, to make a decision based on the best interest of the town. And honestly, as we just found out, every year there's an election. If you don't like the position, I completely respect the idea of not supporting me or if I ever decide to run again anyway. So, you know, my position is at best, it's a handful of houses. And I'm really only even interested in doing that is the town wants to do seasonal communities. If the town doesn't want to do seasonal communities, we can't preference those people and they make too much money to be able to buy a home there anyway, based on what the rules are. We don't have enough information now to make any of these decisions.
Thank you.
Who is the final decision on the whole project? The select people
Zoning board.
approve it or?
Zoning.
or
Zoning Board of
housing
Appeals.
Exclusive.
All we can do is propose, goes to the zoning board of appeals.
Yeah.
No.
We,
Just like with the Sisto was us, they're the permanent authority.
They approve it, that's it.
This guy, Bobby him.
But we, as the landowners, are the ones that formulate the proposal. And for all of you sitting in this room, nobody knows what we're going to propose. You just heard what Patrick wants. And if we spend the rest of the night here together as friends, you'll hear a lot of different opinions. But nobody can come up with a decent opinion about what the best use, considering all of Patrick's concerns. And as a developer, I've been through this process many, many, many times. And once you get the information that you need from a properly qualified engineer, we still need to know what the water situation is. We have a lot of conversation, but we know that all of you who live there don't have fire protection. So one person's house burned down because you didn't have fire protection. If this project it goes through in some form, water will have to be brought to the site, and that will benefit all of you. Now, I can't imagine you arguing against that. We're not having conversation with the.
I just want you to clarify what you just said, that's all. Because we were already told if the sewer goes in through there, it's going to be for those houses, but it's not gonna be anything past there. So it's not gonna benefit me or Peter or Donnie and Rosemary. So how is the water gonna benefit anybody past that driveway when the sewer wasn't gonna benefit anybody past that driveway?
It'll benefit, we don't have a design. I can't,
It's just something you're saying. It's just words.
I cannot answer your question. I know that you're anti this project. We appreciate your opinion. But right now, until we vote and we have a motion on the
We have a
table.
motion. I'd like to actually speak a little bit once more about to the motion.
Good,
which was
please.
to postpone the water contract and also the architectural contract that's proposed here.
Would you like to amend the motion then?
No. I'm in agreement with the motion because I feel Bruce said something earlier that his understanding is that the water would be at least what the sewer is. And what I would like to do before.
The sewer, by the way, there's no cost. Our question is what utility is at our doorstep? And we have sewer at our doorstep. The only cost, which will have to be borne by whoever becomes the developer of this property, if that happens, is borne by the developer,
Right,
not us.
but that goes to the cost of the project, whether we're paying for it or a developer is. I'm just trying to say that I would like to review the information we already have from the sewer study, the idea that the water is going to be at least as much as sewer, and whatever other totals we can come up with in terms of a roadway, and say, wait a minute, this, before any shovels have gone in the ground, is such a large amount that we can't really put affordable housing back there. I would like to review all the numbers before spending another, whatever it is, 7,900 on water, and there's a 9,000 or something on the architects. It's been a while since we've met, a while since I've seen the numbers, and I would just like to go along with this postponement for at least some period of time to reevaluate where we are and whether it's realistic, given the likely additional expenses, to pursue this even any further. I don't want to spend more money on it, so I'm siding with this motion. I think we need a little cooling off here to determine where we are and whether it's realistic to go ahead.
Which is fine. I just want to clarify, Mark, that the cost to bring the sewer is nothing. It's there. And that's the cost that we would be proposing to the developer. The developer then, what I'm trying to get to us to a point, and I'm okay with the tabling if that cools Mr. White off. But,
I don't need to be pulled up. I need,
however,
I'm always like this.
yeah. Have been calm.
This is the normal temperature.
I think it's a little less.
Yes. Mark, the point is that we need to know the cost to present to a developer, the cost of having utilities at our doorstep. The distribution cost is not anything that we're going to get until we have a plan that we like. So if we continue to put it off, we have 5 years to make this decision. We're a year and a half into it. So at some point, we have to collect the necessary information, and that necessary means our decision, in order to then get some informal responses from developers, whether they'd be interested in our plan, whatever we come up with.
This is one, yeah.
Even with the sewer at the doorstep, the price was really high. You add water, which will be equal. If I were a developer, I'd want to put a whole lot of houses in there to make it worthwhile, and I don't think that's what we're looking for here.
I agree with you, but as a developer,
I just want to know the number. You guys keep saying the number.
It was-
Is there a price?
If we had it at our last meeting, it was it depended on how many houses
many
or how many beds were put in the community.
and also we found out today that that number is not a number.
But
you
still-
Just like that in writing or a quote. that
Yeah,
you
it
can
is.
present.
Yeah, it's in the
report,
It's in the notes.
which everybody has.
Yes, no, please.
If you look online, it should, they should.
Okay, I just want to know.
Since I just approved, they just approved the notes, I can put them on
Okay,
today.
so you
Or
keep
tomorrow.
saying this number, I don't know if it's $20 or
No,
200 million.
no, it's in the,
There's no.
It's in the 100,000.
it was around 100,000 if you looked at the lower number of houses and the upper number. It was somewhere like 80-something thousand for, if you did a whole bunch of houses, and it was like 120s, 130s.
The point is-
It was very
It's just nice to
high.
kind of have a ballpark when
Right.
you keep saying.
Well, that gives you a better idea. Don't quote me on the exact numbers, but it's much,
A sense of where you're
Right.
at is nice for us to know.
oh.
I'd like
you're
to
welcome.
move for us to take a vote on the motion.
You want to call them up,
Yeah.
vote, all right?
Can you make the motion
Call the
again?
question.
Patrick, it's your motion.
Motion to table, motion to table this until the town has a stakeholder discussion among all the relevant boards, which I consider to be, at the very least, the select board, the zoning board of appeals, and us, to have a conversation that is informed by seasonal communities. And if after that conversation, this property makes sense, we can bring it back, but we table it until that conversation is resolved.
Can you add planning board to that too?
Yeah, sure, planning board.
I'm not sure I want to support that. I want to table it, but I'm not sure I want to have the condition that we wait for all of those other boards and all of the kind of discussion and the seasonal communities and everything
I
else.
want to answer on seasonal communities before I have any more discussion on this property.
That's fine, but it doesn't have to be in the motion.
All right. Well, then I make a motion to table this for now. For now,
And I'll second it.
Liz, I think it was you, right? You seconded?
Oh, I did before, yeah.
You will second again?
I'll second again.
And the motion is to table, or you table both proposals?
Yes.
Okay. You have a second?
That was me.
Bruce? This is the motion to table.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
I agree. Motion to table. Aye, Bruce.
Oh, yeah, I passed it.
You, Bruce, keep your eyes on the road.
I am. I'm talking to you. I'm not looking at you.
Okay. Aye, Randy.
Aye, Liz.
Jan.
Okay, so we have motion. We have, I had asked the architect who's on, David Eisen, to be on Marianne, are you on? Or did she go?
Yes, I'm on.
Yeah, so I think you've just heard that we have tabled the consideration of your proposal.
I did go to your website. Beautiful work.
Yes.
So I was hoping that we might have input from you, but it looks like we will have to let you know the next time we're going to discuss this. And I want to thank you for joining us. And I'm sorry that we are not going to have some of your wisdom about the site.
To Mary Ann Thompson.
Well, you know how to get a hold of us, so thank you for the consideration.
Is Mary Ann up there? I
Yes,
can't.
she's on the bottom. Who is she? Is that, because I have to.
She's
Architect. She's with
the
us.
other, there are two architects in the proposal.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I think we got to set another meeting. And Patrick, you want to meet the next time that seasonal communities are considered?
I think we're gonna have draft regulations in July. It's the end of May. I think that we should take a look at those and then talk about it. And, there's other things that we could have on a future agenda, for example. Chuck had his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Chuck.
Last time I came to a meeting, I mentioned this. The only reason I'm here now because I work construction and it's raining. Not only people do work. Why can't you have your meetings at 6:30 at night like all the other committees? So people can attend these meetings. You're a very powerful board and you have a lot of money and a lot of sway. And I feel that having these meetings at 3:30 in the afternoon is not in the best interest of the public.
Jackie.
I strongly recommend you have them at 6 or 6:30.
Thank you. And we try to do that. The reason we met at 3:30 today, that's when everybody could come. So we do have to have the meetings when our board members can come. And that's why 3:30 today. You can talk to Mr. White about that also.
On the case.
I did have plans tonight.
Okay, I'm saying it's
But yeah,
very cool to have it free.
no, I'm not, I don't.
Deal with it, I'm just saying.
Sorry about
Have Glendale Middle Road,
All your
we
meetings are
already
at
said
3
we
o'clock.
can't be here.
No, we knew. And
Please. I would like to hear one person at a time. And Chuck, thank you for your comment. Jackie has made the comment on your behalf. We are aware of this concern and I do try to schedule. We used to meet at 7 at night and then I got pushback where people felt that we could meet earlier. So it's really, we'll deal with that right now.
Okay.
Who wants to call the next date?
let's
Who wants to
find a
pick a date?
Are we looking at the end of, what are we?
Are we waiting till July to meet?
What I was going to make is one of the conversations I would like to have, I personally think, and that's going to be a decision of our board, but I think that one of the key issues that this question of land and people, I think is the thing that really saw so much discussion this year. I think that one of the things I would like us to be looking at, for example, is whether we want to consider, things like the subdivision control bylaw and how that affects, the ability to have kind of workforce housing. And, there's a lot of kind of things we could be working on in terms of further planning that isn't so much around yet making a decision. But, if we want to have a meeting in July, I think that would be reasonable. I think that in that article in the Eagle, they said that sometime in July, they were going to be putting out the regulations. And my sense is we should wait and decide if we want to comment on those regulations.
I would suggest we try to meet toward the end of June, not about that, but about, we may have more information on Pine Street
Okay.
and some other things that we.
You think-
I mean, the board is still actively looking at every opportunity in town, correct?
Yes.
I mean, there's other land for sale in town that I haven't heard come up. There's buildings, there's vacant lots that the town owns.
Right. We don't have enough money to buy those.
Well, there's something like 200,000, 500,000. We discussed that the other night,
I'd like to see an agenda item where,
That one didn't fit affordable housing.
I think it was six.
Just constant, should be actively looking instead of,
The industrial park.
not just because.
Right.
But focus, like Pine Street should get the attention it needs.
Mhm.
Elm Court should,
But
Eaton Court should get the attention that it needs too,
but my issue isn't the specific project. It's literally like kind of, how can we know what we should do when we don't know what the laws are yet? And they're going to have the answer to what the laws are. And then it's going to be a town meeting to decide if that's something that we want as an option. And then I think that a board like us should execute what the will of the people is in the town. You know, it's an opportunity to be collaborative here is my point.
But Patrick, and it's not that we don't want to be collaborative. This has been one of the most collaborative boards. I have let the discussion go on for as long as people wanted to have it. You have to agree that we have been open and as collaborative as we possibly can. But until we get information about this land, we can't even make a proposal that could be shaped by all the things that you're trying to do, which absolutely will be most affected by a master plan, which is, Liz, is that?
It's gonna take
2 years out.
Yeah, that's gonna be a year and a half. And so if we sit around for a year and a half without, and then all of a sudden should get this basic information and these basic plans so people would know.
I think a
how to
master
fit
plan
it
is
in.
great. I read the 96 one and it deals with a whole lot of things other than building housing. The Affordable Homes Act is about building housing. The seasonal communities is part of the Affordable Homes Act. It is completely relevant to, as the largest town in the Berkshire, so designated, of the 8 towns that were designated, we are by far the largest. You know, it's relevant to our discussion on housing production. It is.
What, the master plan?
No, the Affordable Homes Act. The Affordable Homes Act is about housing. It's a subset of the Affordable Homes Act in seasonal communities, I mean. We're the largest designated seasonal community.
Okay,
We gotta
that's
decide
great.
that.
We need, what difference does it make if we are or we aren't? If we don't have a plan, we're sitting here with partial information and we haven't put forth anything that we think is appropriate in collaboration with the neighbors, is appropriate for this site.
The point I'm making is that even the fundamental decisions, like what they're going to set the AMI at, area median income at, like who qualifies as affordable? If you're like a family of 4 and you're making 120 grand, under the regular rules, you can't get a down payment assistance or something. But if they raise it up to 180 grand, which sounds like a lot of money to me, but it's not enough to buy a house in Stockbridge, you know, then maybe they could get 50 grand. I don't know. I don't know what our plan should be till I know who the people are who qualify for the subsidy that the housing trust provides, be it for rental housing or home ownership or whatever. I want the people to drive the land use.
Which all sounds nice, but until you know what
No, I'm
land,
gonna-
Patty, can
word.
I jump in here?
who is that?
Bruce.
Bruce?
No, it's not.
Randy?
Is it?
Who, is it Bruce? Is that you?
It is me.
Okay,
is I.
please. It is you. Please,
It is.
please
On
speak.
the same road?
So I think that I hear what Patrick is saying, but, and maybe I'm being naive, but I have a feeling that all of us have a pretty close sense of what the housing price is that someone that we would consider needing an affordable house needs to be in order for people that, you know, EMTs and firefighters and police and people that work for town offices and teachers and so on and so forth, might need to be able to spend in order to buy a house in Stockbridge and for us to have inventory that allows that to occur. So while I think there's some value certainly in knowing whether it's 120 or 180 or 220 or whatever the number might be as seasonal communities or anything else modifies the multiple of AMI that needs to fall into that rubric. I think we probably all have a pretty close idea of what someone that's working as a teacher or an EMT earning 80 or 100 or $110,000 a year might be able to spend to live in a house in Stockbridge. And so my feeling is that I don't really want to continue to push this can way down the road, waiting for all these other entities to have their debates and discussions and make decisions about all of the various things, whether it's ZBA or the planning board or the select board with seasonal communities. And I personally would like to have a meeting. I think it was Liz's voice that I heard that suggested it in about a month. I personally would like us to have a meeting and for somebody to make a list to find out what the potential properties are, homes, vacant lots, et cetera, that are sitting out there that we might want to start thinking about as something that the Affordable Housing Trust wants to pursue. As I've told you before, one of the reasons I chose emergency medicine as my chosen field within medicine is because I never outgrew my infantile inability to delay gratification. And I can't tell you how much I've been delaying gratification with all the discussions we've had about this, that, and the other thing. And I would like us to find something that we can actually sink our teeth into and start moving on more aggressively and try to start and accomplish something and have some proof of concept of what the Affordable Housing Trust can do. I'm done.
Are you in Montreal yet, Bruce?
What's that?
All
Are
right.
you going north on 87? I wondered if you were in Montreal yet.
No, I'm still, I'm now, I'm 28 miles from turning onto the Pike eastbound. So yeah, 87.
Okay. All right.
On January 30th, you guys voted that Jan and Bruce would provide possible costs to date and make a decision if this project was viable. And as Patrick suggested, get a list of priorities. That was supposed to be at your next meeting. Isn't that what you kind of still want to do?
I think that's what Bruce just suggested.
Yeah, well, but you guys take votes and then other things seem to happen before you meet again.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
the next meeting, February 25th. Almost everybody on the television and in this room wanted to vote because they thought the price was too high and it was gonna cost too much for the housing to shut this project down. And Rainey, you were the only one who didn't want to do that. And they said it would be discussed at the next meeting, which never happened. Now it's coming up again. Everybody want to get rid of this plan, this project, put an end to it. Now you've got architects and you want to do studies of this and studies of that. And 25th of February, everybody wanted to be done with it except for you. How did we get from being done with it, all of you guys, to now we've got all this planning and you want to spend more money?
Oh, we just tabled it, so.
Well, I know, but I want to know how you got from February 25th to now. What happened that you guys all didn't want this project anymore except for Rainey, and now you had all this agenda today?
I think that may have been your interpretation.
We didn't vote.
We didn't vote.
I know you
Table
didn't vote. You were
anything.
going to vote.
Well, we didn't. So
did.
you can't say that we were all ready to do
Okay,
that.
we're going to move on since we've tabled the last two agenda items. You want to make a suggestion for date or Jan?
Figures.
This is to talk about like 14 Pine Street and other things.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we don't have a lot of agenda, we don't
Right.
need to meet, but we ought to pick a date.
Okay.
What day of the week?
The days.
But Thursday or Monday? Thursday or Monday?
Monday, the 20, oh God. Monday, the 23rd or Thursday, the 26th.
I'm out of town both those days, but.
Yeah, I'm kind of out of town. I'd have to race
Thursday,
back.
26th.
All right.
When are you in town, Mark?
When are you back?
It's that week, like the 20th to the 27th or something like that.
So you're gone there.
The
So how the 4th is hard.
Then there's
Yeah,
Monday,
I'm
the
back.
30th.
But
June
then, but-
19th is a holiday.
Oh, it is? Oh, that's right. Yes, the 26th is bad.
Okay, so how about Monday,
It's Juneteenth.
how about,
Twenty-six is a Thursday.
right, how about Monday, the
Can't
30th?
do the 26th.
No, you're gone, but.
You're gone
That's not me, right?
Back on the 30th.
Well, so Monday, the 30th would work better.
Jan?
Yeah.
Okay. Bruce, Monday, the 30th, will you be back in residence?
I will be back in town, and I can't check my calendar, but it sounds okay. But I can't check my calendar right now to absolutely confirm.
It's understandable. Okay.
And what time?
But I
Well-
will be physically present, as long as that works.
Okay.
6:30?
On a Monday, who meets on Mondays?
Sometimes agricultural, but I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, well, no, they meet the first week of the month.
Okay, so
Last week should be okay.
we should, Monday, okay.
We have 2 rooms.
So we said 6:30?
Right, Monday, the 30th. We have members who are quite particular who like to meet in this room.
So you want to do that?
Franny,
Yes, Bruce?
other than Pine Street, is there anyone that can start to compile a list of other potential homes, abandoned warehouses,
We've
vacant
been
property or
doing that.
anything else?
Yeah, Bruce, we've been doing that for a year. And
But we haven't really had a meeting where we've listed all of them and talked about it that I recall.
well, we have had meetings actually before you joined because the only other serious site besides Pine Street that might
And the-
work
And the
is,
industrial park.
well, the industrial park is privately owned and that's really under the control of the Zabian family. So it's,
If they're willing to work with the town, I thought that.
One of the things, Peter, you might want to talk to and Liz, your board about is, Egremont just went through a process that they highly recommend around this kind of discussion at a town level, with BRPC. They basically went through a planning process to answer some of the questions I raised today. I frankly think we need a little bit of help. And where we have some discretionary funding, we could work with the planning board, and other boards to kind of maybe start to think about the big picture issues. So, if all the boards are interested in having a conversation together in some way, maybe that's facilitated by somebody like that, that might be a really good place to start in terms of just, I still think we're not going to really know how to approach that until we have answers to these other questions, but those should be coming over the summer.
Well, for purposes of this agenda, I like Bruce's idea of just putting everything on the table that any of us are thinking about. I was talking with Don Schneier. We're walking over by Shamrock Street. You guys are out for one of your walks. And you mentioned the tennis courts that are over there, which are not used. They're in bad repair. It's owned by Austin Riggs, the land apparently, but they've let the town have tennis courts there. It's a beautiful flat site right by the road. There's water and sewer, and it's a 2-minute walk from the Red Lion Inn. Things like that. Now, maybe that's pie in the sky, and maybe Austin Riggs would blow it out of the water, but
But I think it's still worth looking at.
Right.
it's something worth talking about. 8 Shamrock was another street that you pointed out, and I don't know what the status is on that, but
Don, you have made several suggestions which we've looked into and for various reasons. It didn't unfortunately,
Well, Shamrock Street,
I don't know
I
where,
was talking to you about now that property will or is for sale,
it is.
and it's a tear down.
I haven't seen a sign, but you
No, there's no
know it's
sign.
a word of mouth thing. You know about it too, Peter?
Someone who wrote
Okay.
where is it? Just help me know.
You know where Pine Street is?
Yeah, it's right down the road.
Shamrock is the road right on the side of that.
The road where the Waldorf
Pine
School
Street?
is.
Marathonland.
So you come up and 14 Pine is right on the corner
Right.
and the side street is Shamrock. And if you go
Oh,
down, If you go down there, I
Okay.
would say.
Towards the firehouse.
Isn't that owned by the Red Lion?
That's.
No, not that one.
No, there's a,
Anyway, I'm just saying that I think having a meeting where we can lay out all these various options. You know, we might be able to pick off a house or two to try to
Right.
get some points on the board and make something happen. While we
I
have,
agree.
on the back burner swinging for the fences with something bigger. But it may be also a chance for us to talk philosophically of how we view this mission and how we each look at these things. I don't see a 30-unit housing project going anywhere in this town. That's just my preference.
I agree.
Other people may have different opinions about it. And then also to take any suggestions from people who may want to come and attend and say, what do you think? Have you heard of a house? Do you see a lot that might be of interest? What's your vision for trying to provide more housing for middle income and lower income folks? Almost.
Mark, I agree with you completely. I think a 30 unit property is very unlikely. But if we can find 8 or 10 or 12 houses that are either for sale at a reasonable price or tear downs, and we can put 2 or 3 units up in each, that accomplishes the same thing. And we get a lot of credit for basically pursuing that because that's what our mission is supposed to be.
So I'm just saying as an agenda item, it's not, so we'd have something to talk about, but it might also give us all a chance to get a better handle on how we're all viewing this and which directions we'd like to go in. That sound all right to you?
Yeah,
Madam
sounds
Chair?
great.
perfect.
Did we?
June 30th at 6:30?
And
Yep.
Chuck, 6:30.
Yeah, thank you.
Everybody can come.
All right.
Who's bringing dinner?
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
All right,
Aye, aye,
everybody.
aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for.
Hi,
Yes,
Bruce.
thank you for coming.